Welcome to my beginner's guide for the Division 2 in 2023. This is a 5-part series, and in this video we are discussing the end game. So once you finish the main campaign, what is there to do? I'm going to explain it all in this video, and if you want to check out any more of the episodes, they're all linked down below in my beginner's guide 2023 for the Division 2 playlist. Before we get into this endgame guide, it's important to know that there's two versions of the endgame. You have the endgame at level 30 for those that don't own the expansion, and you have the endgame at level 40 for those that do own the expansion. And I know the expansion also comes with a lot more content. I have never not played the game without the expansion. From the day that it was released, I had it, and I've had everything available to me. Anything that I discuss in this video, if you have not got the expansion and you don't have access to it, that is why. So consider buying the expansion. At the very least, you're going to still enjoy an end game where you're going to be farming for builds, optimizing builds, and taking on tougher content in terms of legendary missions and the first Dark Hours raid. I'm unsure if you're going to have access to the second raid or any of the game modes or other features of the game. So just bear this in mind. One thing that I know that you're not going to have access to if you don't own the expansion is the watch. You're awarded this watch at the end of the Warlords of New York campaign, and we covered it at the very end of the first beginner guide last time out. So we're just going to quickly go over it again, because when you first reach endgame, this is probably the first thing that you're going to really truly want to focus on. What the watch does, it acts as the new leveling system once you reach level 40. So every time you go up a level now, you're going to stick at level 40, but you'll get proficiency levels with proficiency caches, and you're going to get watch levels for that as well. Every level, you're going to get a point to spend on your watch, and you need to level the watch up a total of 1,000 times to fill this out. This watch is going to start at level 0, and you can see that I am at 3,842 watch level on screen there. The watch is uncapped. You can keep on getting levels, and this is a forever leveling up system. The higher you get, the more boost to your health you get, and the more points you're going to get to spend on scavenging eventually. But this is how it works. When you get your first level, you're going to be able to spend a point there on the offensive node. Your second level will be the defensive node you can spend on, then the handling mode, then the utility mode, and you'll get a scavenging point every rotation as well. So one rotation is going to take you 5 levels. Once you've leveled up 5 times, you'll then need to keep on rotating and just keep on leveling up a total of 1,000 times to fill out all of these nodes and get 200 scavenging points as well. Each node costs you 200 points to fully level up. And if we have a look at them, the offensive node here, you're going to increase your weapon damage, your headshot damage, your critical hit damage, your critical hit chance. Over in the defensive node, you've got explosive resistance, hazard protection, total armor, and total health. Over on handling, you're going to be improving your accuracy, stability, ammo capacity, and reload speed. And under utility, you'll be improving your skill duration, skill haste, skill repair, and skill damage. With the scavenging node here, if we just go into that, every point that you get on a rotation around the watch for this, it's just going to give you a point to spend so you can redeem some credits or some resources. And that is basically how the watch level system works. You can play the game however you want, just leveling up this watch and improving your stats. This greatly improves your builds that you make in the game, and it's highly advisable that you get to watch level 1,000 as soon as you can. So what can you do in endgame to level this watch up? Well, there's plenty to do. So you've completed the main campaign now. All those main missions that you completed are replayable. When you first went through the campaign, you're only able to complete them on story difficulty. If you hover back over the mission, you can hold triangle or whatever button it is on the platform you play, and you can select different difficulties now. Now, as soon as you get into endgame, I wouldn't really recommend going more than hard or challenging until you get some builds together. But I guess the aim is to be able to complete all of these missions on heroic, which is the hardest difficulty for most of the missions. And to do that, you're going to need to practice, put builds together or whatnot, but every single mission is replayable. We will get to builds before the end of this video, but we'll carry on just explaining what things you can still do in endgame. And on top of those missions, there's also a weekly rotation of invaded missions. Now, I haven't done my weekly invaded yet, and what happens is every Tuesday when the game updates, some missions are going to be invaded by Black Tusk, and you'll be able to tell which ones they are because they're going to be highlighted red. At the moment, I've got American History Museum, I've got Air and Space Museum, and I've got Grand Washington Hotel, all invaded. Now, if I complete all 3 of those missions, that's going to unlock the invaded stronghold, which is currently Manning National Zoo. I'll then be able to complete that on invaded, and with all of those done, Tidal Basin is going to unlock, and I can complete Tidal Basin again. On completion of Tidal Basin, I'll complete that week's invaded missions, and then the next Tuesday, it'll all reset again, and you can go again. Now, these are very worthwhile because when you complete these, you're going to get a lot of XP for it to level up your watch. You'll get a named item for it, which is some rarer gear in the game, which could be quite handy for certain builds you might want to make in the future. You're going to get some random mod unlocks. We'll speak about those in a moment. And you're also going to get specialization points. You get 5 specialization points per invaded mission, no matter what difficulty you play these on, even if it's on normal. So it's very worthwhile doing every week while you're going to be leveling up your specializations, which we'll talk about in a few moments' time. So make sure you're doing this. And on top of that, you've got loads of open world activities to do. If we zoom in a little bit, you can go around the world and just take on all of these open world activities. These are great for XP and leveling up your loot very, very quick. Resource convoys are actually the best thing to do. So if you do see a resource convoy, make sure you go for it. And also you can do control points as well. These give you loot and XP at the same time, and you can just keep on doing control points over and over again. Once you take over all control points on a map, what you can actually do is press right on the D-pad, go into global settings here, and reset all control points to go again. You can only loot the loot box in each control point once every 24 hours, but by resetting control points, it at least allows you to take over them again just to keep on getting some good XP. And while we're here, another thing that you can do to increase your XP gain for your watch is you can change the global difficulty setting, which will be originally on normal when you first complete the game, but you can change to hard, challenging, or heroic. Choose this based on how comfortable you are and what sort of build that you've got. But you can also add directives, which are modifiers. At the minute, we've got these 5 modifiers available. Have a read through, and if you don't mind having them active, this is going to increase your XP. If I turn Core Skills on now, it's going to give me 25% bonus XP. For having 2, it'll be 50%. For 3, 75%. For 100, and all 5 directives, it's going to give me an XP bonus of 125%. That counts for any mission I complete, any open world activity that I complete, and anything. So it's well worthwhile doing when you have a comfortable enough build and you just want to crack on with those watch levels. Now, this is the best way to level up that watch. Like I mentioned, resource convoys are the absolute best, and what you're looking for is one of these icons. A resource convoy is going to go from one control point to the other. You can just take them out really, really quick, and they give you a ton of XP. Don't miss these on the map, and also don't miss icons like this that have a segmented circle around. This is like an elite activity. This is an elite patrol, again giving you bonus XP. And finally, depending if you buy the year 1 pass or not, you're also going to have available to you these classified assignments. They give you some good XP the first time that you complete them. There's collectibles, backpack trophies in them, and they're quite fun little missions. There's 8 in total. Look around the map for them if you have them, and be sure to complete them as well. And if you do have the year 1 pass, you're also going to have additional missions like Coney Island. These are well worth doing too. And at the south of the map, you've got the Pentagon and DARPA research labs. So that's your watch level covered. Now, what else is there to do in Endgame? Now, as I mentioned, going through that with the invaded missions, you're really going to want to work on your specializations. Again, this was touched in the last beginner's guide. Once you reach level 30 initially, you unlock specializations. And when you get into Endgame, you really want to focus on maxing these out. And it's very easy to do. The first 3 specializations you're going to have active are the Sharpshooter, Survivalist, and Demolitionist. And all you have to do is activate it to make sure your character is wearing it. Any XP that you get, any activity that you do, as you gain XP, you will get some specialization points given to you. And as I mentioned earlier with the invaded missions, every week with them, you're going to get 5 specialization points per mission that you do. Now, the aim is to get 165 points on each of these specializations, because once you've done that, you can fully max out the skill nodes inside, giving you access to all of the perks. At present, with these perks and how specializations work, these are very handy for like team buffs and different sort of builds that you want to make. Normally when you're making a build on a Division 2, you're going to kind of match that build with a specialization to see which one improves or works with that build the best. Now obviously with the specializations you can use them as well. I can use this grenade launcher, crossbow or TAC 50 rifle, but I think for the most part it's the perks that you're looking at to basically match with your build that you're making to get the most out of it. And you've also got an additional 3 specializations in Technician, Gunner, and Firewall. These aren't initially going to be available. They're going to have projects for you that you need to complete to unlock them. Once you've unlocked them, it's the same again. You're going to have to wear them, fully level them up to make sure you max out the skill trees. If you have the year 1 pass, the specializations are unlocked automatically without completing the project. Now, I just want you to take note with these skill trees and how they work now. We have long been awaiting a specialization revamp. They spoke about it a long time ago and it's been delayed and delayed and delayed. At some point, specializations are all going to change and it's not going to be the skill tree we see now. I imagine they will still be working similar, but if you're watching this video and it has had that change, I'm not 100% what it's going to be, but it's still going to be a way of leveling up specializations to get extra perks, but the perks may be different than what they are now. So just keep that in mind if this looks different to what you see playing in Division 2 today. So, we have spoken about leveling up your watch and specializations. This is very important that you start doing this as soon as you get to endgame, doing any activity that you want. But it's also builds. Builds are the biggest part of the Division 2, and I'm going to have a whole different video as part of this beginner's guide dedicated to builds and how to make builds. But I do want to quickly touch on them now because this is why a lot of people play this game and why a lot of people keep playing this game. You can see here I have many different loadouts on this character. I go farming for this gear, I put builds together for certain activities, I trial and error stuff. I just have a lot of fun with them. There's so many builds that you can make on this game and it's such a huge part of it. One of the first things you're going to want to do when you are in endgame is make a build. And I'm going to recommend a build to you right now to just quickly throw together that's going to help you along your way and just buff your damage up a little bit and give you some survivability at the same time so that you can just take on missions and activities at a little bit of a higher difficulty level. This build is very straightforward to put together as soon as you get to endgame. There's no exotics to farm for, nothing's too difficult to get. And when you do put this build together, you're ready for pretty much most of the content. You'll be able to increase the difficulty to challenging or heroic once you get used to it. And when you get really used to the game, you can even use it in legendary missions with the right team. It starts with a grenade launcher specialization, so just equip that. And then for the primary, I like to use an assault rifle. You can use any assault rifle that you want. I go for the ACR. It has assault rifle damage and health damage as attributes already. And I like the third attribute to be damage to target out of cover. The talent I like to use on assault rifles as well is Strained. It works very well on them and I highly recommend it. The secondary I am using is a classic M1A. This comes with rifle damage, critical hit damage, and again I want the third attribute to be damage to target out of cover. The talent with a rifle that I like to use is Boomerang. And in the sidearm, it really doesn't matter. I never use my sidearm at all, so it's just there for the sake of it. I'm running the TDI card custom, which will probably be one of the toughest pieces to get on this build. But throw any sidearm that you want. If you do manage to get a hold of one of these, though, it does come with a skill tier when you equip the TDI card custom that can be useful in certain situations. So it's quite handy, but don't worry too much about the sidearm. And the 6 pieces of gear looks like this. So again, we're going to go over builds in full in a separate video because there's so much to go over. But very briefly, you got loads of different brand sets and gear sets on the Division 2 that you can farm for. Now, Grupo is the brand set I'm using for the mask here. You can see for having one piece of Grupo, it unlocks 15% critical hit damage. Now, if I was to wear 2 pieces, I get 15% explosive damage. And if I was to wear 3 pieces, I get 15% headshot damage on top as well. We're only using one piece of this though because all I want is the critical hit damage. The attributes, it's always going to come with weapon damage as a core attribute on Grupo, which is great because that's what I want. And the rest of the attributes are random rolls, but you want critical hit chance and critical hit damage. Now with how it works with gear pieces, once you find one, you can always recalibrate one of the 3 attributes on that piece. So you don't need to find the perfect piece. For example, If you find a Grupo mask, it's got weapon damage and critical hit chance on it, but then the other attribute is something that you don't want, you can roll that attribute off for critical hit damage to make it exactly what you want. So just bear that in mind when you're farming. And also with the mask, backpack and chest piece on branded items, they all have mod slots as well, and you can throw mods on them. The mod I throw on my mask is a critical hit damage mod. The chest piece on this build is a Fenris chest piece. This brand set for having one piece gives me 10% assault rifle damage, which is working well with my assault rifle. You have weapon damage as a core attribute. And again, you want to get a piece with critical hit chance and critical hit damage on it. Throw a critical hit damage mod on it. And I highly recommend starting off with the talent Unbreakable. With the talent Unbreakable, when your armor is depleted, you repair 95% of your armor, and it has a cooldown of 60 seconds. So every 60 seconds, you just have that survivability if you do lose your armor. And while you're learning the game and you're getting used to higher difficulties, I can't recommend it enough. This isn't a talent that you'll take with you when you get more experience. You will advance onto other talents, but for a starting build for a new player, I think it's perfect. Next is the holster, and we have a Providence holster. And you can see that I'm actually using more than one Providence piece here. We've unlocked the 15% headshot damage for one piece, critical hit chance of 10% for two pieces, and critical hit damage of 15% for three pieces. On this holster, it comes with weapon damage as a core attribute. I've got critical hit damage and headshot damage. Headshot damage is not what you want here. This is the only piece I had available though, unfortunately. You want critical hit chance over the headshot damage. And as you can see, there's no mods on the holster. The backpack is Providence again, and with the rolls here, the core attribute is weapon damage. I've got headshot damage, critical hit damage, and a critical hit damage mod. Again, critical hit chance over the headshot damage is preferred, and the talent I have here is Perfect Vigilance. You don't need to find this one. A normal Providence backpack with just Vigilance will be absolutely fine, but this is just a named version where it just slightly improves the talents. And with Vigilance, what it does, it increases total weapon damage by 25%. Taking damage will disable that buff for 3 seconds. On the normal Vigilance version, I think it disables it for 4 seconds. So as you can see, it's not really important. And with the gloves, I've got the third piece of Providence there with Providence gloves. Again, weapon damage, critical hit chance, critical hit damage. And the final item is the named Fox's Prayer knee pads. These are of the Overlord brand set, so you're going to get 10% rifle damage for having one piece of Overlord on there. And the Fox's Prayer come with a core attribute of weapon damage, and you always get the 8% damage to target out of cover. This is basically the best in slot piece for any all red DPS build, which I'm showing you. And the third attribute you want is critical hit damage. Now, being a named piece, this can be a little bit difficult to farm, but it quite often goes up on a vendor reset. While you're making builds on a Division 2 and when you get into Endgame, the vendor reset could be very important for you. Check out YouTube, and I've also got a link in the community to a vendor reset update page where you can just see what's on sale every single week. And when these go up for sale or anything else that you want to make builds with, make sure you go and buy them. And the skills to use on this build are entirely up to you. I go with the Reviver Hive because if I go down, I can get back up. Very handy if you're solo. And I've got an assault turret on there at the minute. I sometimes switch between a striker drone as well, or a decoy if you have the Warlords of New York expansion. There's loads of different skills that you can use here. Go with whatever you prefer. Once you put a build together, you can always look at the stats of the build. And on a build like this, when you're making like an all-red DPS build, it's very important that the stats are quite high to increase your damage. If you just press R1 and go to the stats, you can see the stats of your build and have a look through these. Now, the most important thing about this build is the critical hit chance and critical hit damage. You can see I've got 53% chance and 183% damage. Again, I have a max watch level that buffs this, so you're not going to have as high numbers until you max your watch level out, but you're aiming for these sort of numbers on this sort of build, and you're going to really tear through enemies. So how do you go about farming your build? Well, we have already discussed what you can do in endgame to increase your watch level quickly to get to 1000 as quick as you can. Well, that's going to be a way of farming for your build. While you're doing all of that, there's going to be loot drops, and you're able to see what loot you get and go through it to see if you get the pieces that you want. Now, one of the best things about the Division 2, though, if you are looking for something in particular, if you just press up on the D-pad while you're on the map, you have targeted loot. Targeted loot is the best way to farm for what you need. So on this build I just shown you, we're going to need a Fenris piece. Just look around the map and you can see that Fenris is actually targeted over here in Downtown West. When it's in an area like this, it means that you need to do open world activities or control points in that area. And what will happen is you'll get Fenris pieces to drop. When targeted loot drops, it looks like this. Instead of just being like a small blank rectangle, it's going to be a big square with a brand set icon on it. This means that you can just continuously farm this area for Fenris pieces. You can take a look at them to see what they drop with. If they're no good, you can mark them for junk and sell them or dismantle them. Or if they're what you want, you can add them to your build and favorite them. At this point, it's worth mentioning the world difficulty or the difficulty of the activity that you're doing matters. Now, my world difficulty was on normal for this, and as you can see, this is just a purple piece. Nobody wants this in endgame. You're going to want to at least upgrade the world difficulty to hard or even challenging to ensure that most of the pieces drop are high-end gear pieces, which are the gold pieces. This is what you're after. Basically, the higher the difficulty, the better the loot. If you're playing on heroic, it'll guarantee that you always get high-end loot. I think challenging does as well, but the higher the difficulty, the higher the attribute rolls will be as well. Look at those attribute rolls there on this purple piece playing on normal. They are dreadful. Weapon damage at 3.2% when it can max out at 15. You don't want that. When you play on heroic, these attribute rolls will be even higher, so you do want to aim to get to the point where you'll be farming gear on heroic for the best rolls. But everybody's got to start somewhere, so make sure you're farming at the difficulty that suits you. It's got to be efficient. If you're not getting loot drops because you keep on dying, well, that's not efficient. You need to lower the difficulty to get the loot drops to improve your build, then up the difficulty to get the better loot drops later on. So just find what difficulty suits you. Look at targeted loot and try and put a decent build together like the one I've shown you. So as I said, just looking at this today, we've already got Fenris here that we can use to get one of those 6 pieces. Just next to that, a Federal Emergency Bunker, we've got Overlord. So for those Fox's Prayer knee pads that I said could be quite difficult to get, every time you complete this mission, you've got a chance of those named Fox's Prayer knee pads dropping. So this would be a great mission to farm today if you are looking for that. Grupo and Providence, which is the rest of the brand sets I use on the build, don't seem to be available. But what you can do is farm for the actual gear piece itself. So if you go down here into this area, we can see that Constitution Hall has backpacks today. So we can farm for backpacks in that area and hope that a Providence backpack drops that we want. The same with the mask if we go south here to West Potomac Park. And the holster up here on DCD headquarters. So you can farm for certain pieces of gear as well, although they will drop any brand that's a little bit harder to get. If you're looking for a particular brand set, it's always best to farm for the targeted loot on the brand set, but if it's not available, go for the gear piece instead. And don't forget, if you've got the expansion, it's not just DC that you have access to. We can travel back to New York and we can see what's on targeted loot here as well. We don't need to travel there. We can just press up on the map and see it right away. And we can see Providence and Grupo are actually here today. So this would be the best way to farm those pieces. We could farm open world activities and control points in this area for Providence pieces. And we could do the same in that area for Grupo. Today, if I wanted to, I could put this build together in probably a few hours work. And don't forget, you're going to want to also farm critical hit damage mods to put on your mask, backpack, and chest as well. Mods can also be farmed through targeted loot. So now, a quick recap. We've talked about watch level, we've talked about specializations, and we've gone on to creating your first build. They are all vital things that you're going to want to do as soon as you get into the end game of the Division 2. But next, I want to talk about inventory management and the recalibration station. This is going to be very important and you're going to want to be starting on this right away. So we've discussed about how we're going to go round and we're going to look for loot for builds or whatnot, but any gear that you don't want, you might not just want to dismantle it or sell it right away. You're going to want to come to the recalibration station. Now, the reason for this is because once you put your builds together, here is where you're going to recalibrate pieces. Like I said earlier, if you remember, if you get a piece and it's only got one attribute on there that you don't want, you can recalibrate it. Well, coming here and going to recalibration station allows you to do that. If we go over to my assault rifle, for example, in the ACR that I'm using, this is perfect at the minute. I don't want to do anything on this, but if you pick one up and you've got assault rifle damage, health damage, damage target out of cover, and the talent on it is something you don't want, you can just go into that, you can go down to that talent, and you can replace it for another talent. So if you want strained on it, you'd find strained, and you'd transfer strained on to this weapon. It does cost resources and currency, so you do need to make sure you build up a good amount of that to be able to do this. If you don't have the right amount, you have to come back later. It's important to mention as well, I think I've already covered it, but you can only do one roll. Once you've rolled a talent over or one of the attributes, everything else is going to be locked. You can see I've already done this to this weapon. I've rolled strained onto it, which means now I'm stuck with that. I'll never be able to take damage to target out of cover off of it. And if I ever wanted anything different than this, I'd have to farm another ACR. This can be done with any weapon apart from exotics. When you get exotics, they are stuck to what they have. You can't change anything. But if anything else, from weapons to gear pieces, you can come here, you can go into them, and you can edit one attribute of your choosing. Now, to make this even better, what you're also going to want to be doing is working on your library. The recalibration station works off your recalibration library. So, for example, if I was to go into a chest piece here and my Fenris chest piece and everything was perfect, but I wanted to max out one of the attributes because let's say my weapon damage is only 10%. Well, as long as I've got a 15% weapon damage in my library, I can change that weapon damage and recalibrate it to maximum. Now, to do this, it's really easy. Whenever you get gear pieces that you're not going to use, come to the recalibration station and you're going to be transferring those talents or those attributes onto the station for you to use in the future. You can see here that everything's max. Looking at this rifle, my core attributes is 2 out of 2 max, 12 out of 12 attributes there, 23 out of 23 talents, and it's the same for everything else. But when you first get to end game, this is all going to be at 0. And if you've got anything on you in your bag, in your inventory that you can transfer, you'll notice green arrows pointing up to suggest that something can go onto the table. You'll just go into it, you look at the green arrow, and you'll just go into that again, and you'll find the item that you can transfer over to the library. Let's just say in sync, for example, you press X on that, it'll show you the weapon that it's on, and if you don't want the weapon, you transfer the talent. That will dismantle that weapon, but that talent will be stored in your library forever. You'll then be able to recalibrate this on any weapon in the future as many times as you want. You don't need to go and find in sync again, for example. This will be here forever to recalibrate on as many weapons as you want. So make sure when you're looting and your bag gets full, and before you sell or dismantle it, come to your library and make sure you transfer everything over to here. The idea is to get max rolls. One of the things we always do when we're helping people in the community with raids or whatnot, if they need max rolls and we get max rolls that we're just going to go and dismantle, we'll drop the item for them so they can go and put it in their library. You really want to fill this out because when you are making builds later in the game, it's going to be very helpful to be able to roll these onto your pieces to save time optimizing. And optimizing is something else that you can do here. You can see optimization. With your builds, once you've created them and you've done your one recalibration roll and you can't do nothing else with it, there might be certain attributes that are still a little bit lower and you still might want to optimize to maximum. Well, that's where this comes in. If we go into it, it looks the same as the recalibration part. If we just go to the assault rifle again to use as an example, you can see that assault rifle damage is maxed out, but my health damage and my damage to target out of cover still needs some work. I can use resources that I can farm in the game to increase these from the optimization menu. So with the resources I have there, I can increase my health damage to 19%. I'll do that now. And at 19%, I can go back in there and I'm able to do another increase to max it out to 21%. And with my damage to target out of cover there, that's got one more optimization to go to max at 10% as well. So this is how you optimize your builds. Once you've got the perfect build, you know you are going to keep it and you just want it fully maxed out to get the most out of it. You'll be farming resources to make sure you're able to do this at the optimization station. And finally, we've gone over recalibrating your weapons. We've gone on about filling out your library, which is all very important. Optimizing builds isn't so much important when you first get to end game. You want to wait until later on when you know the builds you've got are real good builds that you're very proud and happy about, and then you want to think about that. But expertise is something else that you want to start working on when you get to end game. What expertise does, it levels up your weapons or your gear pieces and it enables you to make them stronger. If we have a look at the expertise menu, we can see all the different items here that you're able to expertise. And I think the max level right now is expertise level 21. You can see I'm only 15. It's very hard to max everything out. Now, to max an item out, you basically need to wear it or spend resources to level it up. So again, if you go to my assault rifles and take a look at my ACR, you can see there that it says it is proficient. Now, being proficient, it means that I've fully leveled up this. Now, it takes 10 proficiency levels to level it up. If I'm using this ACR a lot, it's not going to take long. But if I'm not using this ACR, I can come here, I can upgrade it by using the resources to get it all the way to the top. Now, once it is proficient, what you're able to do is come here and upgrade its proficiency level. You can upgrade it to the level that you are. So, for example, I'm level 15 here. My expertise level is 15. It means I could upgrade this ACR to proficiency level 15. For every level of weapons, you're going to get 1% weapon damage. So that means right now, if I had enough resources, I could gain 15% weapon damage from this ACR. Again, it's all about having the right amount of resources to do this. And how this works is it's only going to count for this ACR alone. If I've got other ACRs on different builds with different talents and I've got multiple of them, it ain't going to work for them. You're going to have to level each one of them up individually. The initial proficiency level, though, will count for all ACRs. I only need to get one ACR proficient to be able to always level up other ACRs. But when you do start maxing all the weapon damage out, you got to do them all individual. And this works for every single AR and piece in the game. So you do want to start working on this as well. And one of the best ways to do this is, again, I'd work on your library first. I'd definitely get your recalibration library maxed out. But once that is done, if you come to the expertise, any junk that you have after a grinding session, there's a donate all junk here. And what that does is just help you get things proficient more quickly. So make sure you're donating junk here on a regular basis to get it up. And just work on these items by wearing them and using them. The plan is to get everything proficient, so you get to expertise level 21, and then with your builds, you'll then work on individual items to get all your builds and all your pieces rather up to level 21 as well. For the weapons, you'll gain a maximum of 21% weapon damage, and for each gear piece, it actually gives you 1% armor. If we go and have a look at the chain killer here, you can see if I leveled this up, I get 1% armor. So you're going to get 21% armor in total off that once it's fully expertised out. Now, I know this is a lot to take in. I didn't want to go too in depth with all of this because you're just going to get lost. And the best thing about it, if I just give you a brief explanation and you make sure you're focusing on this, before long you're just going to get it and it's just going to be natural. So very briefly again, as soon as you hit endgame, make sure you're throwing things in a recalibration library. You can then use that to recalibrate items. You can then also optimize your builds once you're fully happy with them. And you also want to work on your expertise, which is the gear leveling system, because once your gear level is at max and proficient, you're then able to upgrade that gear to get more out of it. Now, doing all of that is going to require a lot of resources and a lot of farming, but this is what endgame is about. Another video in my beginner's guide playlist is a watch mule video which helps the process of expertise and recalibrating your builds. Be sure to check the playlist out because when you're ready to do all of that, it's going to save you a ton of time. But for now, for this video, we're going to move on. We've discussed a lot today and we're now going to move on to different modes in endgame. We've spoke about a lot, including creating your first build and whatnot. There's other modes you can play and you can diversify the way you play. Now, the first thing I will just discuss very briefly is PvP. On the map here, you can see a dark zone all the way here at Dark Zone West. There's a dark zone all the way to the east and one to the south. How dark zones work is you go in there, there's other players, there's landmarks, you can find loot that is contaminated, and any contaminated loot needs to be extracted. You've got to get to one of these extraction zones to call in a chopper and get out with that loot. There is some dark zone exclusive loot that can only be found inside of dark zones, so that's why you're going to want to go in here. One of these items is actually the backpack I shown you earlier with perfect vigilance. It's called the gift. It can't be got from outside of the dark zone apart from named caches that you can open. It might drop in one of them, but ideally you want to get it from here or a vendor reset as well. Dark zone vendors can sell them. So you'll come in here, you'll look for loot and you'll try and get it out. Or you might just come in here to go against players, enjoy a bit of PvP action. You'll get a bag when you get your loot and that's going to be on your backpack. If a player kills you, they can rob your loot. And vice versa. If you kill another player by going rogue, you can rob their loot. It's a fun experience and it might be something that you're interested in, but I highly advise that you get builds together that are suitable for PvP before you attempt to do this, or it can be an unpleasant experience. And the other PvP mode on the Division 2, if we just go to the left on the top toolbar there, we can go all the way over to Conflict. You can quick play this. There's different modes in Conflict. It's 4v4 action. You're going against another team. You can go in with a team of friends, so 4 of you together, or you can matchmake and play with randoms. These are timed game modes. You've got to reach a certain score or whatnot to win, and at the end you'll be rewarded caches based on your performance. These caches that you open will give you loot, and again, these do have the option to give you Dark Zone specific loot as well, so they're worth doing if you do need that specific loot. And then finally, there's 2 game modes which are quite fun on the Division 2 currently, and we've got the Summit all the way over here, and we have Countdown. Both of these modes can be played solo or in a group, and if we head over to Summit, you're going to be in the lobby area here. You can bring up challenges, and with challenges you're able to select different challenges that you want to aim for while you're playing. This is going to give you more reward in terms of XP for your watch, targeted loot. There'll be an exotic here as well called the capacitor that you get for completing 5 challenges for the first time, and it's worth doing. Some of the challenges are quite tedious though, so if they're too tedious for you, don't worry too much. Make sure you get that exotic though. Besides from the challenges, once those are set, if you head over to the left, you can set up your Summit experience. Starting from floor 1, the aim of this is just to keep on climbing floors, taking on waves of enemies. Some enemies will have boss waves, there'll be boss floors, and you want to get all the way to floor 100, where there's a hunter encounter, and after that you complete the summit and you start again over. And with the settings, you can set this up to your advantage. So with the difficulty, again, the higher difficulty the better. You'll be getting better loot, but it is going to be more difficult. You can do normal, hard, challenging, heroic, or even legendary. And on top of that, you can again set directives just like you can in the open world or on missions, but there's more directives available here. As you put more directives on, you're going to have an XP boost, but on top of that, you're also going to have more chance of targeted loot to drop. If I was to put all directives on there, you can see I actually get a 188% XP bonus, but it is going to be very, very difficult. So tailor this to your suiting, and once tailored, take on the summit to find loot and just to have a different experience on the Division 2. The best thing about this game mode, if you just bring up the map, you'll see the summit from floor 1 to 100 here, but in the bottom left, you can select your targeted loot, press down on the D-pad, and you can select what you want to target for. So where in the open world, it changes daily, and it might not go to an area that you like or whatnot. In the summit, if you're looking for like a Fenris piece or a Providence piece or whatever you're looking for, you can come and say what you want. So today, I want a Fenris piece. I'll select that, and whenever targeted loot does drop, it's going to be Fenris for me. At any point, I'm able to bring up the map and change this targeted loot to look for something else. It's a great way to grind for builds if there's certain builds that you want to put together. And the other game mode, Countdown, is exactly the same. If we open the Countdown menu, this is actually the best way to farm for anything in the game right now. So everything I've discussed so far in this video, I was trying to cover people that may only get to level 30 as well and not have access to Countdown. If you have the expansion, I'd forget all of that if you just want to get things done quickly, because Countdown is so overpowered for getting builds, for getting resources, for everything. It's brilliant. The only thing it's probably lacking on is XP. But with Countdown, you can select a difficulty. I always go for challenging for the most efficient, and you can play solo. You can just start matchmaking and jump in with a team. If you've got a team together though, it's even easier. Work with your team, still play challenging, or even up it to heroic for the better loot drops. And on this game mode, you're basically just going to be going in, completing objectives, and extracting within a certain time limit, which is 15 minutes, which is plenty of time. Once you get into a Countdown game, just press your map button, and again, bottom left hand corner there, you can select your targeted loot. It works exactly the same as the summit. Just select what you're targeting, and whenever targeted loot drops, you're gonna get what you want, and you can change this on the fly. Once you find something you want, you can come back in this menu and change it to something else. And here's a quick look at the Countdown map and what you're gonna need to do. There's some modifiers when you first start Countdown. Everybody always goes to these modifiers. They're red to begin with, which is working in the NPC's favor. You change them all to green by interacting with them and killing the hunter defending them, and it turns it into your favor. There's then 3 objectives. You got to complete 2 of these objectives as a team. You're always in a team of 8. And once 2 are completed, you'll get a primary objective. You go and complete that primary objective. After that, an extraction point will open to get out with all of your loot. Any loot that you do pick up in Countdown is saved. You don't lose it if you die, which is good. And the best thing about this game mode is that it drops a ton of targeted loot and a ton of loot in general. In one game on challenging difficulty, you could be coming out with about 60 plus items of loot. It's well worth doing. With that, you're going to be able to put it into your library. You're going to be able to put it into your expertise. You're going to be able to dismantle it for materials. It's just so good. Grinding Countdown is going to get you far quicker. And another great thing about Countdown is the Countdown vendor. When you extract in Countdown and you kill hunters, you claim dog tags, and for a successful extraction, you get more. These dog tags can be used at this Countdown vendor here. You can see the Countdown currency. There's always some items on sale that you can buy, but also there's caches. Named item caches are great. They cost 112 Countdown currency to buy, and these can have DZ only items in them. So if you're looking for the gift or anything that can only be farmed in a DZ, they have a chance of dropping in this. There's optimization caches you can buy, there's season caches you can buy, and exotic caches. So if you're looking for exotics, this is a great way to get them. They do cost 224 Countdown currency though. As you can see, I play this a lot and I've got 20,763 currency currently saved. And finally, to close off this video, what is the end goal of all of this? Why are we maxing out our watch level? Why are we filling out the library? Why are we optimizing and making good builds? And why are we getting everything expertised? Well, there's some tough end game content, and the toughest end game content comes in the form of legendary missions and 2 raids. There's one raid here over at the airport called Dark Hours. It's an 8-player activity, and once you've got a team of all the correct builds, it's a very difficult raid to figure out and complete. It's such a great experience, and at the minute there's an exotic eagle bearer which is exclusive to it. In the next update in the Division 2, as of making this video, you will also be able to get that eagle bearer inside of the Dark Zone as well, but this is going to be your best way of getting it through the Dark Hours raid. The other raid is called Iron Horse, and that's up here. This is a more difficult raid. It's the second raid that was added to the game. Again, it's an 8-person activity. You're going to need specific builds. You're going to need a strategy. You're going to need to learn how to do this, and it's really difficult, but so fun to figure out and learn. And you feel really accomplished when you do get through it and you complete your first Iron Horse raid. Again, there's some exotics attached to this. Right now there's an exotic Ravenous, which is a rifle. Again, that is going to be going into the DZ on the next update, but this will still be the best way of getting it. And there's another gun called the Regulus, which is an exotic sidearm. A lot of people call it the best weapon in the game. That is still going to be exclusive to this raid on the next update. It's going to be the only way that you can get a hold of it. Now, these raids are really difficult. If we head over to the PlayStation trophies, there's a trophy for completing Dark Hours, and you can see that only 3.9% of players have completed it. Now, what's worse still is that exotic eagle bearer I was on about, that only has a 10% drop chance from the end chest of that raid. So even if you complete this raid, you might not even get the eagle bearer, which means you've got to complete it over and over in order to get it. And only 3.9% of players have completed it. There's also a trophy for Iron Horse as well. If we have a look at that, only 1.3% of players have completed that one. Again, there's only 10% chance to get the Ravenous at the end of that. It's probably going to take multiple completions. It goes to show just how hard this content is. If you're watching this video today though, I'm glad to inform you that our community has a full-on setup to help you with raids. We recognize how difficult this content is. We have teams helping on PC, PlayStation and Xbox daily. Just become a member of our community, get active, just get some builds together. That Unbreakable DPS build I showed you earlier is the perfect build for our teams to take you through these with as well. So it's a great build to farm for. Get lucky, get in with one of our teams, and we'll help you through these raids, both of them, and help you get the exotics as well. I do this live on stream sometimes also, just to show the great work that our teams do. And finally, besides the raids, there are legendary missions. You have 5 legendary missions in total, and they are strongholds. So if we go over to District Union Arena and hold triangle, you can see that when you go on difficulty, you don't just have normal, hard, challenging, and heroic, but you have legendary as well. You have legendary on District Union Arena, we can go down to Capitol Building. You'll have Legendary on that. And all the way over at Roosevelt Island, that's another Legendary mission. And then the two latest Legendary missions that were added in a recent update at the date of making this video is Manning National Zoo Legendary and Tidal Basin Legendary. Again, this is very tough endgame content. The best part about Legendaries, though, is that you don't need 8 people to do them. They can be done in a team of 4, 3, 2, or even solo. The most difficult way of doing it is solo, and I highly recommend that you get a team. And again, in our community, you can find people to group up with to take on these Legendaries. They will require specific builds and strategies, but once you practice them enough, they are very doable and a great challenge. I really do love the Legendary content. It's much more difficult than raids in terms of like how difficult the enemies are, but obviously with raids it's all the mechanics and stuff that make them difficult and the teamwork involved. This is just about clearing enemies and getting through the mission on Legendary. It's just very, very difficult. It's such fun content to make. All of this is going to take hours and hours of your time. This is one of those games that you need to plug a lot of hours into. And you can see here, my main character has had time played of 142 days. My second character, I've also done 6 days on it. And I've had many more characters as well. These two I delete every now and then and do different playthroughs like hardcore or watch mules. But there's a lot of time needed to get all of this done. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to take you 142 days to do all that, but it is going to take a long time. And what is after that? What happens once you've done everything? You know, you've worked on your expertise, your library's full, you've got builds that are optimized, you've completed all the raids, you've completed all the legendaries, and you've done everything. What's there left to do? Well, the Division is a live game, and if we bring up the menu, you can see we currently have a season here. And you have a season track. We're currently at season 10. Season 11 is due soon when they make some big changes or whatnot. But every season, you're going to be given activities. And if we just use season 10 as an example, we have the manhunt that we have to do at the start of the season. There's then a league to do, which is where you can compete in time trials. There's a global event, which changes like the mechanics of the game and makes it really, really fun with different things that go on. With this one, for example, polarity switch. All agents, firearms, and hostiles are charged with polarity, either positive or negative. Engage enemies of the same polarity to inflict increased damage. You can opt in or opt out of that when they are on, but that's fun, and it gives you more rewards and like global event vendor to spend stars on and whatnot. There's another manhunt that you do. There's like 4 manhunts in total, leading to like a main manhunt to take on. There's more leagues. There's a Powell event, so you can unlock a Powell for your character, which are really good. You can deck out your wardrobes and look really, really cool. More global events, more manhunts, more leagues, and more global events. This basically is what seasons look like currently on the Division 2, and you have a reward track as well, and the reward track looks like this. You've probably seen something like this before. When the season starts, you start off at level 0, and as you increase each level, you're going to go through this track and unlock more and more awards. So it'll be exotics, gear items, patches, keys, resources, caches, all sorts attached to this reward track, and some vanity items as well. So you'll be working across this every single season that comes out. And if there's 2 tracks to this, like a free track at the top, and if you spend something like £8 or something, you get the bottom track as well, and you get to do this. I think it's like once every 3 months or so what it's meant to be, but sometimes they get delayed or whatnot. And season 11 is coming out very, very soon. In the future, with Year 5, there's a brand new game mode coming as well. I'm sure they've got other plans for the Division 2. We have new games coming as well, Heartland and the mobile game. There's just so much going on in the Division universe, and it's a game that just keeps on making you come back. Every season there's new gear added, new exotics added, there's a new spin on builds, so you might want to come back and try out some new builds to see if you can do stuff better. It really is a game that just keeps on giving, and I feel like I've explained the whole of Endgame today in this video. I hope it has helped. Again, this is just one part of a 5-part beginner's guide series. The link is down in the video description to the playlist. Go and check it out for more beginner's guides, and I hope this has helped you today. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe to support, and we're going to end it here. Thank you for watching. Until next time, stay safe and peace out.